Have you ever noticed how quickly the mind takes sides, even with the smallest things? Is there a space between sides? Um, for me, the real test of unity isn't how we respond or show up when things are easy, but how do I stay open when people, uh, things, politics don't go my way? There is an art of resting in the center. And today we're going to explore finding peace beyond preferences and the art of staying centered even when things are swirling around us. Welcome to Walking the Path. I'm so grateful that you're here. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Um, Before I get into Walking the Path, I want to take a moment to talk about Rythmia Life Advancement Center, which has been my Costa Rican home for 8 years plus, and I'm so grateful for this amazing place. Another amazing week is happening right now. I've been teaching Michael Beckwith's course, The Answer Is You, at Rhythmia this week, and it's so powerful to see how people come and people that have done a lot of work on themselves already are showing up and seeing new things, finding a way to see the old patterns that have been blocking us, connecting with the truth of who we are, releasing old stories, and stepping boldly into the future of our most authentic self. That's Rhythmia. And that's what we do every week. And it's been through that process, through that uh, healing center, that some of these ideas have come up. And the idea today is about unity in diversity. How do we have respectful disagreement? One of the biggest things that I've noticed on my trip to the United States in September, I spent the month. If you don't know, I spent the month camping and hiking, but I was in a lot of small towns in Montana and Wyoming, Idaho, Utah. And then I was in big towns in Southern California, San Diego, and Los Angeles. And I got to see all sorts of different ways that people are relating with what's going on in our nation, in the United States, but also in the world at large. And I noticed myself taking sides, and it didn't feel right inside. And so I started this exploration this month of October. Um, in Walking the Path, we started on the first with Yom Kippur, the Jewish Day of Atonement. And we talked about how atonement is really at one-ment, that atonement isn't punitive or punishment, but that atonement is really returning to God, returning to source, to the truth of who we are. And then last week we talked about so that's really about dissolving the illusion of separation. Last week we talked about show no partiality, how to be impartial, sacred impartiality in diverse and difficult situations. And those are really theoretical and abstract. So today I want to make it like concrete. How do we handle disagreement in our families, in our friend circles, whether it's about politics or plant medicine or whatever? How do we stay centered? Because it seems to me there's, a blaring glimpse of the obvious. There's a lot of division in the world, but unity doesn't mean sameness. Unity in diversity certainly doesn't mean sameness, and it really means harmony. Like a choir, there's all these individual voices, distinct and unique, but they're harmonious because they're all tuned to the same key. And the spiritual journey isn't about removing difference, but it's how do we relate consciously within difference. And this made like every disagreement a sacred opportunity where my heart still contracts and where compassion can grow. It's an opportunity to see where my heart is contracting and where compassion can grow. So I notice for myself, when I'm in disagreement with someone, my ego's first move is to defend, right? Like either defend or to convince or to withdraw. I either try and like defend or persuade them to my side, you can really see how wrong you are, right? Or to just withdraw. I'm not going to say anything. That's where I've been a lot lately is you know what? I'm just not going to say anything. What I'm really seeing is that listening and acknowledging doesn't mean I agree. That's a huge point for me. And speaking doesn't mean dominating, but that really being curious. Curiosity is really love in motion. And it says, you know, you matter to me more than my opinion of you or the situation or circumstance matters. So I want to talk about, you know, this art of respectful disagreement, because being spiritual doesn't mean that we don't disagree. It means that when we do, we don't disconnect and we remember love in the midst of difference. So before I go any further, I want to talk about conflict. I want to talk about conflict because conflict is not a bad thing. Everything in nature emerges from conflict. The seed has to crack open in order to sprout and grow. The butterfly has to fight its way out of the chrysalis in order to gather strength enough to fly. The tectonic movement of the Pacific plate and the continental plate created the Rocky Mountains. Everything comes from conflict. Fire comes from friction. You know, fire is born out of friction. Storms oxygenate the planet. So in nature, conflict actually produces, like even our muscles, we have to work out and tear down the muscles so that they can rebuild again. Muscles strengthen by meeting resistance. So I want to reframe conflict. Doesn't mean that something's wrong, but it means that something new is trying to emerge. Something new is seeking to be born. So we can reframe, first of all, that conflict isn't bad, but conditioning has really taught me, I don't know about you, to fear disagreement, to equate conflict with danger. I would say that's the withdrawal part, right? You know what? I'm just going to not say anything. But I don't want to do that anymore. So when I can approach conflict with presence, not with defensiveness, it becomes creative rather than destructive. And it's the spark of evolution instead of separation. So today, I want to reframe conflict as an invitation. Invitation to practice love and motion to find unity within diversity and to let tensions between differences birth a deeper understanding rather than separation. And so from this perspective, our goal in communication is not to engage in it consciously. And that really begins with how we speak, you know, with owning our experience rather than projecting it onto somebody. There are a couple of things that we can really own. And I want to honor that some of this content comes from my good friend, Helen Philipson, who is in Copenhagen. And she shared some conflict resolution, constructive communication pieces with me that I really love and I want to share with you. So I want to honor Helen. One of the things is what to say, you know, this sacred self-reference. You know, when we're in conflict, I notice that I focus on what the other person is doing wrong, right? But respectful disagreement begins with self-reference. I talk about myself, not the other person, not their character. I talk about my own experience. You know, so instead of like, you're so insensitive, it could be like, wow, when I heard that, I felt hurt and unseen. You know, this is part of the importance of self-referential. We're back. There was a little pause there. Okay. So instead of like saying, you never listen to me, you can say, I'm feeling unheard, right? This is first piece of being respectful in disagreement is to be self-referential. It's about being transparent, not accusing. And another thing that I really love is what my friend Helen calls subtitles, right? It's like speaking your intention aloud before you say it. You know, subtitles, when you see like subtitles for the closed captioning for the hearing impaired, you know, it'll say like, it won't just say like what the person said, but it said, slams door angrily, or eerie music playing. It's sort of giving you some context to what's being said. So in our communication with people, we can kind of do subtitling. We can give a little context before jumping in. Like, I want to talk to you about something that's been on my mind. And my intention is to be understood and to understand. My intention is to understand and to connect with you. I want to talk to you about something that's been on my mind. I really want to connect and understand. This is, a sentence that can change the entire vibration. So speaking your intention, uh, is one way, like subtitling and couching what you're saying within your intention is one great way to change the vibration of the conversation. The next piece is when we go to talk to somebody, practical tips on how to communicate is how we say something is as important as what we say, So there's an energetic posture that really allows us to be calm and receptive, but assertive. Calm, receptive, and assertive is an energetic posture. It's an intention. My intention is to be calm, receptive, but assertive. Assertive meaning I'm not dominating the conversation, but I'm willing to share my opinion with you. Calm regulates the nervous system. You can do this with a simple body scan, a few deep breaths and a simple body scan, from just seeing where from head to toe there's tension. And when I'm calm going into a situation, it's contagious. The other person feels calm. They're going to react to me. It's our mirror neurons. So if I can be calm and regulate my body, other people will regulate too. Receptive means remembering to understand the other person, um, and not diminishing their truth or your truth. That understanding them doesn't diminish the truth. I'm just understanding. I'm not diminishing my truth. I'm not speaking against myself. It's not against you. We're collaborating towards understanding. Let's try and understand. And assertive means that you know your truth. I know my truth. You know your truth. I can share my truth, but it's not the truth. It's my truth. And you have your truth. Your truth is your truth. My truth is my truth, not the truth. This means that both parties, both people, both sides have the right to their own experience. So before any difficult conversation, take a breath and remind yourself, calm, receptive, assertive. It's so powerful. Then when to speak, right? So we talked about like what to say and how to say it. And now we're talking about when to speak. For me, because I've been conditioned to avoid conflict, a lot of times I wait too long to speak, waiting for the perfect moment. That's one of the most common mistakes in constructive communication. But there's no perfect moment. It rarely arrives. So, if I'm waiting for the perfect moment, resentment and, so if I notice the pattern, for some of you, it might not be about waiting. Some people might be rushing in too fast. But if it's about waiting, notice that pattern and speak sooner rather than later. If your pattern is rushing in, speak later rather than sooner. What's your pattern? The goal isn't to control the outcome. It's simply to voice your truth and be present. So the most important thing is the point of speaking up is speaking up, right? Like, just be grateful. I'm grateful. I'm like, I spoke up. Okay, it didn't go exactly the way that I wanted, but I spoke up. I didn't wait. And once I've spoken with clarity and respect, that's already success. So whether your thing is rushing in too fast or not, or waiting too long, just notice the pattern and either wait or speak up. But when you've spoken, and you've spoken with the stance of clear, calm, and assertive, you've succeeded. It's already a success. So now the most important part, the silent part, right? The holy pause. And real listening isn't formulating a response while the other person's speaking. right? Real listening is absorbing what the other person said. And one of the most powerful ways to make sure that I've absorbed what the other person said is to repeat back to them. So I might say something like, I want to make sure I understood what you said. Let me repeat back to you what I heard. And then we can correct. And I can also say that to the other person, right? Like, I want to make sure I was clear. Will you repeat back what you heard so I can make sure that I'm clear? This slows the conversation. And when I'm repeating back what the other person said, I'm picking up more of what they actually said. And when they're repeating back to me what I said, I'm hearing what I said through their hearing. Both really help to establish understanding on both sides. And if things do get heated, there's time for the holy pause. A few seconds of silence, a breath can change everything. Listening isn't weakness, it's wisdom. And it's how we hear with love through all the noise. Finally, there's something about accountability. Like, what are you accountable for in a disagreement? Like, accountability means taking full ownership of what I'm bringing, my tone, my words, my reactions, my response. That's what I'm responsible for. I am not responsible for what other people say, what other people feel, or what other people do. Not my responsibility. So be accountable for what's yours and what's not yours. This is really liberating. This is super liberating. So when I make a mistake, I can name it. I can say, I'm really sorry. I raised my voice. I lost it. I've been working on respectful disagreement, and I've been practicing it, and I got to keep working on it. Just to own what you've said. That also just drops everything. This is actually what divine order looks like in communication: clarity, humility, and moving forward. So, really quickly, I want to go through a few pieces about how to conflict. How do you conflict, before, during, and after? So remember, conflict isn't inherently a bad thing, right? Both the relationship you have with the other person and with yourself, and the relationship you have with the situation, right? Remember that this can make conflicts much easier to deal with as we walk in with the assertive, clear, and calm intention. But there's a lot of discomfort from conflict. But this is the deal. Discomfort, we deal with discomfort all the time. I know you can deal with it. So we can deal with a little discomfort. So before the conflict, right, it's important that you don't trade unpleasantness, with fear of communicating. So we just have to be uncomfortable, right? A little bit uncomfortable. And because the bill for not speaking up grows and it gets harder. So it's better to address things clearly and quickly, and be okay with the uncomfortable or displeasing feelings. But it can also be important to resolve. The next, know your boundaries. Know what's going to happen if things go sideways. What are you going to do if things get heated? What are you going to do if you feel angry or they feel angry? This is really important, to have your idea of what you're going to do in case something goes sideways. And then the third is to remember that the purpose of speaking up is speaking up, right? Take some deep, use the calm your body, take a few breaths, scan the body, state your intention to be calm, receptive, and assertive, and remind yourself that hearing, understanding, and acknowledging another person's point of view does not mean agreement. Know your truth. What is your truth? Know that your viewpoint is your viewpoint, their viewpoint is their viewpoint. Speak clearly. You can respectfully disagree. You have power only over your truth, and the other person has power over their truth, and there's room for both. Now, if you're in the conflict, right, now you're in it. Stay calm, right? Number one, maintain your boundaries. Remember, it's not a bad thing. Conflict isn't a bad thing, and it's safe to disagree. There's one really important thing you can do, is to take a break. pattern break, right? Like you can shift the energy of a conversation by sitting down if you were standing up, or pausing, or taking a breath, or saying, I need to get a glass of water. Break. If something goes out, getting heated, pattern break. That can really take a moment to ground. And once you've grounded, you can come back. This is like a bridge to working together. So now you've done the conflict and it's over. It's important that you calm down, right? Go back, few deep breaths, scan the body, remind yourself that conflict isn't inherently a bad thing, and then look to see, has anything changed? You know, is there anything positive come out of this? Look to see if there's a few positive things that have come out of it, and maybe look at one thing that you might work on. You know, um, you did your best. Conflicts happen. And sometimes they didn't resolve themselves the way you wanted or the way I wanted them to. And that's okay. That's also part of being okay in the discomfort, you know? So be proud that you even said something, that you engaged and had an intention. Just be satisfied with your effort, you know? Um, Lastly, got to physically take care of yourself. Get some water, get some sleep, take a walk, do something good for your body. These are concrete steps that you can take before and after conflict and during the conflict, that can help you engage more constructively. So this has been a transmission on the art of respectful disagreement. I hope you found it useful, and look forward to hearing your comments and your thoughts. And I'll see you next week. Have a beautiful, beautiful rest of your week. Blessings.